All right, hi guys, my name is Shelby Wachter. I've been showing in 4-H and FFA for 12 years now. I am aged out of 4-H. I currently just am showing in FFA. We've been raising sheep for a handful of years now, so I've got quite a bit of experience with the sheep project. I've showed from the levels of county fair, state fair, and the national level. But today we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about things that you should be doing to help get your sheep project ready for the county fair as it comes to show prep, grooming, what they should be eating, what you should be feeding them, and then what you should be doing directly right before the county fair, as well as we're going to go over some showmanship tips and kind of help to set you up hopefully for some success in the ring as you get ready for county fair. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the equipment that you're going to want for this project, some of the things you're going to need, as well as there's a lot of extras. Don't feel like you have to buy everything that I talk about in this video. I'll be specific and say the things that are going to be necessary for you to just function day to day, but then the other things that you're going to want to just potentially get your hands on as you're getting ready for county fair. So with that, some things you're going to definitely need. You're going to need to have a halter of some kind with your project, and I'm sure that you already know that, but I'm going to talk about some different types of halters just to give you ideas of what the options are. It comes down to personal preference. In the sheep project, you only need a halter when it comes to just functioning with them, getting ready for the fair, training them, and dealing with them at the fair. But in the ring, you won't need one. So in reality, you can easily use these rope halters, and if that's the personal preference, that's great. You can find these at any of your supply stores. I think even like local ones like a Baumgars might be able to get your hands on halters. Otherwise, Sullivan's or Weaver or the Final Drive Show Supplies that's in Wisner, Nebraska is another great option to find any of these products, including this halter. But then personal preference, once we have the sheep used to the halter and broke to lead, we prefer to use these chain halters just because it seems to give a better handle on the sheep, and it just kind of keeps them in line a little bit better. But again, by no means do you have to use this. It's a personal preference thing. The rope halters are a great option as well. This one does have a clip on the end, which can be nice for tying them up, but at the same time, not all of them do. So again, it's just whatever you have access to and get your hands on and your personal preference. Then going along with that, other things you're going to want to have for kind of daily use, but also as well for getting ready for the fair, are just brushes to brush out their leg hair. These are two different options, two different styles. This one's more like a human hairbrush. It's not as aggressive because it's got the little knobs at the end, but it's a great option. This one's a little more aggressive. It's a poodle brush. It's kind of rough. So I wouldn't be really aggressive when using this one, but either one are great options for brushing out their leg hair. Only use this on their leg wool. These don't go on their bodies. There's never a reason you need to be using this on their bodies. It's only for their leg wool. So just have some kind of brush that you can use to brush out their legs. Again, both of these you can find. I believe this one specifically is only a Sullivan's product, this exact model, but I think that Weaver has their own version of this. But both of these things, it's like a poodle or a carding brush might be called that. You can find these again in any of the livestock supplies stores that I've talked about already. And then another basic thing that people forget a lot, don't talk about a lot, is fly spray. Fly spray you're going to want to use not only at home but also on show day. Flies are annoying for everyone, and livestock included. I would use this at home, but I would also use it on show day as like a last thing to do before they go in the ring, just to make sure they're not kicking and bothered by flies when you're trying to work with them or set them up in the ring. Any animal fly spray will do great. And then another last kind of thing that you're going to need to have when you're getting ready is shampoo of some kind. So this isn't a dog dish soap bottle, but it's actually Clear Choice Sullivan Supply shampoo. Does not have to be fancy. There's all different kinds of shampoo options. There's like the ones that are supposed to be brightening because they're purple and whatnot, and those are great. If that's what you want to use, that's awesome. We just use this basic Clear Choice shampoo, and if you don't have access to that, honestly, Dawn dish soap also works as well. I prefer Clear Choice just because we can get it in big gallons and then just fill up little bottles as we go. But again, it's whatever you get access to. If it's safe for humans, it's generally safe for animals. And then some optional things would be these conditioners. This is a pro pink. We use it in their leg hair. It gives it kind of a nice shine, a little condition on show day. Definitely not a required thing, but I mean, if you already had it around because you use it for your cattle, it's something that can be used for sheep. Again, also Revive is a skin and hair conditioner often used in cattle, but we also use it sometimes on their hide if it's a little dried out. But again, these are very optional products that are not required to replace them. You can easily use human conditioner, like what I would put in my hair, a cheap one from Walmart. You can put that in their leg wool and then just blow it out, and it's a great way to give them a little shine and give them a little volume as you're getting ready for a fair. And so the last things you're going to want to have access to as you get ready for fair are clippers. Clippers are one of the more expensive things that you're going to need for this project, so you don't necessarily have to buy them, but you're going to want to either find someone that is going to allow you to use them or share some with you or whatever that may be. So we use Premier ones, and on these, the blade that we have on them is the fine blade. There's some different ones, I believe, like medium, fine, and surgical are the most common for sheep. We would use mediums if we were just like roughing them out, but getting ready for a show, we use the fine. Surgicals are a little more risky because they cut so close. It just can get a little bit dangerous. We find that we can get it cut close enough easily with the fines, and we don't have as much of a risk. We don't run as much of a risk with it, and it works just as well. And then this is also, these are the Andes Ultra Edge. We have a blending, medium blending blade on these ones. And so this is what I would use to blend out their leg wool. I will show you when I get one of the sheep out here a little bit later in the video. I'll show you exactly what I mean when I talk about where you clip. But on sheep, similar to a goat or similar to a market goat, you would clip their whole body down with these like clippers, like the Premier ones, whatever blades you choose. You would clip their whole body, their whole neck, and clip off their head. The only thing that we're leaving and we're going to be blending out with these blending blades is going to be from their knee down on their legs, on their front and back legs. We're going to blend that out, and I'll show you that on one of the sheep here later on in the video. And the last two big things I want to talk about for equipment that again are super optional, but if you have access to them, they make your life a little bit easier, is this one is a stand, the sheep stand. This one's from Sullivan's. Again, it's not a required piece of equipment. It just makes your life a little bit easier. We use it in everyday stuff when we're doing hair care and training and things, but it's not a necessary piece of equipment for that. If you can get your hands on one as you're getting ready for fair, or if you can find a friend that you can borrow it or share one on show day, it just makes preparation a little bit easier. These are more expensive piece of equipment. It can run you, I don't know who bought this one many years ago when I first started, but I would say probably around from $100 to $200 depending on what kind of one you chose to pick. This one's a steel one, so it's a little bit cheaper than the aluminum options. But again, it's something that if you can get your hands on, it's a great tool. If you can't, you'll still be fine without it. And the last thing, it's another super optional thing, is gonna be a blower. This just makes your life easier, again, getting ready for and on show day, because you're gonna wanna blow them off before you clip them. And so you want them to be relatively dry. You have to kind of know the clippers you're working with. The ones that we're working with, we like to keep them a little bit damper because the clippers work better when they're damper. But it just depends on the clippers and the blade you're using, so you have to know that. But the blower is, again, a really optional piece of equipment. Again, this one's kind of old. I haven't bought one in a while, but again, it's one of those things that I think runs from around $100 to $200 depending on the model that you get. This one's from Sullivan Supply. But if it's something that you can borrow from a friend, even one of your cattle friends for sheep show day, borrow one. It'll be a great way to make your life a little bit easier come show day. So now we're gonna talk a little bit about feeding your lambs. At this point, we're about mid-June, so you're at the stage of the game where your sheep should be completely off any crate feed, and we should be transitioning them, if not already had them transitioned, into a textured feed. This textured feed that has several different components to it, the pellets, the corn, oats, whatever else is in there, is probably just the best option that I can give, the most balanced option that I can say in general for any lamb. Again, feeding is more of a lamb to lamb individual basis, but if I'm giving a general guideline, textured feed is the best option for almost all sheep. And also going along with this, the most general I can give you for recommending how much to feed them individually, think about giving them roughly a pound morning and a pound night. Again, that's super general. And you have to realize that in most cases, if a sheep is converting feed, at the highest they would convert feed is they would like take 1 pound in of feed and convert that into like a quarter or a half a pound in weight. So if I'm giving my sheep 2 pounds a day, they're gaining anywhere from a half a pound to a pound a day. And so you have to kind of have that in mind when you're thinking about what to be feeding your sheep. Here we've got lots of different weights on feed. We have one that's at 94 pounds and one that's at 138 pounds. Those are very different things that we're feeding them at this time. But hopefully, again, if you have more specific questions about what exactly you should be feeding your lambs and how much, don't be afraid to give Cole or I or Melissa or anyone at the extension office a call or an email. We can definitely help turn you in the right direction of exactly how much you should be feeding your animal at this time. But also with that, the next 2 big components in feeding are giving them some type of roughage. This grass hay is a great option. They do need to have roughage. They're ruminant animals, so they need to have that to help keep their system, their gut working. But also at the same time, they don't need to have too much of this. If you give them too much of this, that they have access to this at all times, they're going to bloat. And you don't want to have big bloated sheep by the time county fair comes around. So I recommend about a handful morning and night. So anywhere, this is probably like the minimum. You maybe can give them a little bit more than, I would say maybe give them more than this, like a really good solid handful. But that's what I would recommend, morning and night. Again, it's one of those things you can adjust per individual animals, but that's the best recommendation I can give you just in general. And then another really big component in feeding is fresh, clean water. I cannot stress how much fresh, clean water can affect an animal and the way that they convert feed, the way that they're successful, and the way that they take on feed, add muscle, protein, all those things. It all goes back to having to have fresh, clean water. Along with keeping them happy and healthy in these hot summer days, it's also good. It's also a huge part in their nutrition. It's one of the number one important things we're talking about nutrition with sheep. But the biggest tip I can give you is just don't give them access to feed all day long. They don't need to have that. Again, it just goes back to if you have specific questions about how much your animal should be consuming at this time based off of their weight or what we think their size is or what their weight is, do not hesitate to give someone at the extension office a call or a friend or a family member that knows sheep. Just ask them because it's never going to hurt to ask a question, especially when it comes to feeding, because feeding is a huge and really important component in raising livestock, but it's also one of the trickiest components in raising livestock. So again, do not be afraid to ask questions. So another piece of equipment that we can deal with these sheep is these blankets. This is called ProCool. We got it from Sullivan Supply or from Weaver, any of those supply businesses. It's optional because it's not something you need to have. I like having them because we show all summer. We take them to different shows. They get sheared frequently. So when they're slicked down like this, we like to keep this blanket on them to give them another barrier, not only from the flies, keep the flies from bothering them, keeps them a little bit cleaner, keeps them from getting scraped or anything that like sticking wires might be out in the barn. But a big component is because sheep are susceptible to fungus, which is an issue that we deal with in the sheep industry. It's a little skin thing that they can get. It's similar to what humans get in fungus. It'll be like a little ringworm that'll be on their body somewhere. It's usually round and raised and red. It's not anything that's like hurting the animal, but you can't take them to shows when they have fungus. And their natural defense against that is their wool. They've got things in their wool that defend against the fungus. And so when we strip them of that, we want to try to give them some ways to defend themselves again, which is this blanket just helps give them another layer of defense against fungus. There are some other products you can use to help keep from getting fungus in prevention or in treatment. If you ever feel like you're dealing with fungus or you feel like you want to talk about ways to prevent it, feel free again to contact Cole or I or Melissa or someone at the extension office, and we can help get you in the right direction for something along those lines. So then when I was talking about earlier in the video about clipping and shearing sheep for county fair and whatnot, so this is like what you're going to want them to look like body-wise. This has a few days growth on it because she was clipped just quite almost a week ago. About 5 days ago she was clipped. So this is a little bit longer maybe than what you want at county fair, but again, this is still easily functional. This would be perfect for a show as well. So as you see, we got her head clipped. And then what I was talking about, we're talking about clipping their legs. So we slicked down to about here, and then I use that blending, the blending blades to then blend out the rest. I did the same on her back legs, clipped to about here, and then blended out the rest. There's a little more growth that's come since we've washed her and whatnot, but so I would blend this out a little more if I was going to take her into the show ring. But that is a really rough idea of what you need to have them to present them again in the show ring, like ready for county fair. So when we're doing showmanship, I recommend at first when you start practicing at home to go ahead and keep your halter on if you're not comfortable taking it off. If you're in a small enclosed pen, or you're in a small, enclosed building, whatever it is that you have space, but at the same time it's not too far away that you can catch them if they get away, then I would say go ahead and take it off right away. Whatever you're comfortable with, but know that ideally by county fair we want to be practicing and getting ready with them without a halter on, because you would like to go in the ring without a halter on. But otherwise, if your only space is like in your front yard, then I would recommend working with your halter on until you're really fully comfortable. So I'm going to go ahead and take her halter off to kind of show you guys a little bit of what I'm talking about. So when you're showing any animals, but sheep are the same as any animals, the show side is what you're going to want to stay on. So if I'm facing the same direction as the animal, if I'm facing this way and their head's facing that way, then I'm staying on the left side of their body. So this is the side that we typically function from, on the left side. So if the judge were the point of view of you guys, then I would stay here on this side. But if the judge were to switch and be on the other side, then I switch to the other side as well. The goal is you always keep the animal in between you and the judge, because in every situation, even in showmanship, when it's about you as the exhibitor, it's really truly about your animal and presenting your animal to the best of your abilities. And so that means keeping it all about the animal. So when I'm setting a sheep up, the first thing I want to do is stay keeping it straight lines. So like if we were all lining up next to each other, or if we were all lining up this way, head to rear, I want to keep a straight line. And the next big thing is we do 4 square feet. I know in cattle, sometimes they might have a foot off depending on the angle of the profile you're at, but with sheep, we always keep it 4 square, just in line. And typically I recommend just keeping the legs under the sheep's body in a comfortable position. So her front legs are comfortably underneath her. She's not stretching out far. She's not pushing herself, what I would call supermaning, where her legs are way back and her chest is pushing out. She's comfortable and her feet are at a good angle. And I would say the distance they are apart is about the distance of my foot. So I could about stick my foot in between her feet and they comfortably fit right in there. So that's a really comfortable way for her front legs to be. Her rear legs, I'm going to set them like right there and right there. So again, they're square. They're just under her or just slightly right behind her. Again, I would say in the back legs, probably a little more, like about 2 of my feet. Like I could stick both my feet right next to each other, right in between her legs, and they would be comfortable. And so then when we're bracing sheep, so when it comes to just having the animals standing in the ring, they don't have to be bracing. But when the judge comes to handle them, you're going to want to brace your sheep. That means wrapping your leg in front of your sheep, pushing down on their body, and her legs aren't set right now, so I'll fix that. So that means wrapping my leg right around just the front of her body and pushing her back down. So she's pushing her body weight into my legs. So I have plenty of space on my legs to give their breast, their chest plate, whatever you want to reference and call it, plenty of space for her to push her body into mine. Now, honestly, she's not doing that really great right now, but we're working on it. She's learning just like your sheep will be as well. So I want to push her legs back a little bit more, so that gives her the idea that we want her to push into me a little bit more. So this is just standing there, waiting for the judge to come over and feel my animal or whatever it is. The position you want to keep your hands in, it's kind of what's comfortable to you, but at the same time it's what's comfortable for you and your animal. You want to make sure that you have control of them, but we don't want to be bear gripping them. And they don't like that, and it's not comfortable for them. The same way it wouldn't be comfortable if I came up and gave you a big hug around your neck. They don't like that either. So we want to keep straight lines, try and keep their head level, their neck straight, and all in line with their body. Straight lines are what we're trying to do with our sheep at all times. And the only other position you're going to do when you're setting up your sheep is giving a front view. So I'll rotate her so you can see that. So when I'm giving a front view, I want my back legs to be set, but I'm not as concerned about it. The bigger thing is making sure your front legs are set, and then you hold their head, try and keep it, again, straight lines. And I step back and make sure that, again, it's not about you, it's about the animal. So I would step back and present her versus presenting myself. So it's all about her. And then I would transition into getting, once the judge has moved, then I would transition into getting in front of her and getting into a brace again. So last thing is showmanship is moving around the ring. So when you're moving around the ring, it comes to what you're comfortable with. I am usually more comfortable keeping my hand kind of away, kind of setting it here where it's okay if I have it ready, if I need to get a little more of a handle on the sheep. But at the same time, it's here, just kind of comfortably relaxed. But again, if you're a beginner, if you're not as comfortable with your sheep, I would start by just resting your back hand on the back of their head. You don't need to be gripping it. It doesn't need to be aggressive, just resting on the back of their head. And you use, this is your control. You're using your control with this hand, with your left hand. And so I lead my sheep. She doesn't want to walk right now, and that's okay. They usually do better following. But when we're leading, this is how we would lead, is I would lightly, again, don't really grip here. They don't like that, and it's the same way you wouldn't like it if I gripped onto your jaw. So lead them delicately like that. If they don't want to lead, give them a little tap on their rear end here. I call that their go button. That's how you would give them a little tap. And so then this is how we would walk around in the show ring. It's just like that. Keep it at a nice pace. Like I keep it at just like slowly stepping with one of my legs, just a nice even pace. Again, it kind of comes down to knowing your sheep, but that's why we practice all these things at home, is to find out what works best for each individual animal. But kind of a medium, comfortable pace is usually the best for all sheep. And then again, we would go into a brace once you stopped, and to set up your sheep and go into a brace. The biggest thing I can tell you is to be patient. This takes a lot of time to get to this point. She's been worked with since the beginning of May. It's almost over a month now. It can take so much to get to the point where it's comfortable for them. Remember that everything that they're doing is a natural. It doesn't come first nature. So just be patient. It's going to take some time, but the more effort you put into it and the more time you spend with them and the more time that you practice these things, the better that it's going to get over time.